Greetings, I'm Reverend John O'Toole. Welcome to my humble backyard, where only the birds and the bees knows what goes on out here. You look around, it's in the evening, it's beautiful, it's dry, not like we've had for some very humid days. We've got all kinds of trees I can see. I can see some elm, and I can see some birch, some cherry, some maple, some oak, pine, and right behind me is a cranapple tree. The cranapples are only for the four-legged addicts. And it's beautiful. We got flowers, we've got berries, we've got all kinds of things living, thriving, and we have me also living and thriving. But you know what else we have? We have a deck made up of wood. It's got a railing and some things below the railing, rails, I guess. We've got a rocking chair. We've got a chair I'm sitting in. We've got this beautiful house. In the house, I have chairs, I have bed, I have table, desk, food. I have all kinds of things that you could touch and feel. Now, it's an interesting thing when you start thinking about it. Now, many theologians will say to you that God is everywhere, that God is in all of us, and that is how we're connected. Recently saw one of the last Star Wars movies, and the Force is within you, and it's within everybody, and that is basically the premise of that movies, and why it attracted people in that certain time of age group. Where I grew up with it when I was in my 20s, and here's the last. Well, now there's a show on Disney Plus, but the movies, they had the bite, they had the real teeth in it, of this belief that there's a force that ties every human being and every creature on this planet together, and even those that we can't see. Like, for example, I'm very fond of the fairies, and my connection to the fairy realm. I also have connection to the tree spirits, the water spirits, the Native American energy. I have a very wide range of connection to Mother Earth, Gaia, and also all that is, God, Goddess, all that is. But what is this connection all about? Have you thought about it? Do you just assume that they tell you to believe in it and that's what you do? Now, some of us out there, and I know there's quite a few that watch me, are into science, and they're going, well, I don't understand it. Is it just a belief? Is this something we do when we go to pray together? That's when we're given permission to pray, and otherwise we're not given permission to pray? Oh, that gets me on a whole other tangent, and we'll stay away from this time around. So here we are, in the sun shining through the trees. So let's take you down to the most simplest thing. The simplest thing is called an atom. It has the nucleus, it has the proton, and it has the electron, and it holds together in one mass. Now, I may not have all the terminology right, but you know where I'm going with this, don't you? No, you don't, do you? If you did, you wouldn't be watching my video. So, it's kind of an interesting thing. Now, this railing, for example, is made up of atoms. The chair is made up of atoms. I got a tank here full of kerosene. It's all atoms, it's something physical. A bunch of atoms have got together and they create something. Perhaps a human being had to make it create from another form, but it was still an atom that got together with other atoms. Kind of like going to a family picnic. A bunch of people get together and they form a big family or gathering, or you go to a concert and there's thousands of people that have all come together to enjoy a concert. It's a similar thing, that these atoms get together and become a railing. Now, if we lived in a virtual reality setting, like there's virtual reality where you go from one room to the other and the room you just left disintegrates and you're just moved into a new room that's now manifests in front of your eyes, but it's nothing real. You could put your hand through it and you may get vertigo because of the whole experience. Nothing you touch is actually real. But, you know, when you come out of your virtual reality spot and you're sitting here, or you're sitting there, or you're sitting around, just look around at where you are right now, this very instant in time. Look around the room, or look around wherever you are, and tell me what you see. Well, of course, I can't hear you because I don't have a virtual reality headphone on for you to virtually reality talk to me. But you can tell that you have things around you that are, in fact, solid mass. Now, in order to have a solid mass, you have to have atoms. And those atoms have to join together to form what you have. Now, it's the same thing with a tree. The tree is made up of atoms. Same thing, the bushes. And people are made up of atoms. Now, in order for atoms to get together and form something, say a human cell, for example. Atoms get together and they decide to become a human cell, and then they multiply, and eventually you have a body. And then you have consciousness in that body. And we all know where this is going. And we all have two things in common. Everybody on this planet, every animal, every creature, every tree, every bush, every flower, every blade of grass has the same thing in common between all of us. We all born and we all die, and we all live a life in between. Now, sometimes that lifespan is a fraction of a second, maybe even less. There are a bunch of little flies up there. They're either mosquitoes or black flies or mayflies. And they're made up of atoms. And I hope that they stay exactly up there dancing in the sunlight and not find out that there is a guy with blood on this porch right now. Because right now the sun is not on me, and if the sun's not on me, that's where the bugs come. And they're all made up of atoms. And the atoms got together and say, hey, we're going to form a flea, or a lightning bug, or a bee, or a hummingbird, or an eagle, turkey, pheasant, flowers. They get together and they decide that's what they want to become, and they become it. Now, you can't do that unless you have consciousness, right? Now, I know this is probably out to lunch. A lot of people are thinking, this guy is crackers. But think about it. If you have a bunch of atoms and you put them together like clay, trying to think of what's something we used to make things out of, they fall apart. Play-Doh, or a sandcastle. So you make a sand castle, and you have to make it with wet sand, and as soon as it dries out, it collapses because the binding agent is the water. And as much as if there's consciousness in the molecule of sand, it's joining up with other particles of sand to make a sandcastle. But the binding agent is the water. And when the water consciously decides to leave, then it falls apart. Now there has been studies about water, happy water and sad water, and how emotions are tied to the water molecules. There's been a lot of studies. Most of them are from in Japan, but I bet if you looked it up and Googled it, you would find out information about it. There's a movie, I forget the name of the movie. The second sequel is Down the Rabbit Hole. The first sequel was something, I don't know. But there has been a lot of studies about water, and if you treat water with respect and you don't destroy it, it brings you life. If you microwave it and you kill all the enzymes and all the minerals, you're not drinking healthy water. You've just killed it. It doesn't fall apart. It's just not as healthy to drink as it was before that in a mountain stream or a clean lake. Deep down in the well, like I have a well, and deep down in the ground where the water is filtered through sand and rock and clay, and it becomes a viable thing to drink and live off of. You can distill it and you take out a lot of the minerals, but then it's not so live. You can microwave it and it's less live. You can boil it and it's less live. Fresh water is good water. So if there's consciousness in water, then there's consciousness in other things. So in order for a desk to stay formed, all these atoms have to get together and say, hey, we're going to make a table today. You know, they started off as a tree. Some are made out of plastic, some are made out of steel. Some have trucks going by the front. You hear it on the If they have consciousness, they have awareness. If they have awareness, they know that if you graze this tree here is a oh gee, I forget it. No. It's not a birch. It's a very hard wood, but it's not a good wood to make a table out of. You wouldn't use that tree to make a table out of because it twists and warps. Even if you try to dry it, once you're drying it, it'll twist and warp, and that's what it wants to do. It grows up in a spiral. Over here we have a birch tree, but it's a dark birch. Or back here we have a white birch. We have a couple of them. We got two in the front yard. This one here is a dark birch. But it won't ever grow to be big enough to make a table. Maybe a cane, or you know, something, if you wanted to. But these atoms got together and say, hey, we're going to form a tree. And we're going to put it in this yard. And it's going to grow. We're going to grow as long as we can grow, as long as we have water and nutrients and sunlight and life. And if they don't catch some kind of disease, and the disease has consciousness also, it will live a long, long life. That tree is probably 20 years old. I've been here 10, it's been here, so it has to be at least 20 years old. I got this pine tree here, it looks like a Christmas tree. It's pathetic looking, but it's a tree, and I don't cut it down. I could cut it down and make it look the yard look a little better because I wouldn't have a not necessarily perfect Christmas tree in the yard. But I think it's cute, and it thinks it's cute because it has consciousness. Now, many people are not into this metaphysical stuff, I know. I know a buddy of mine over in Australia that he thinks I'm bonkers whenever I talk about this stuff. But that's okay, because, that tree decided that that's how that tree is going to look, and that's how it looks. I mean, it could grow a couple extra limbs and balance itself out, but it's happy the way it is. So this force be with you thing is about these atoms that have consciousness. And everything on the planet, everything, has consciousness. The plant life has consciousness. There's a thing that I make now. I might make some at some point because I want to make one for my front garden. It's called a Geodesa crystal, and it emulates the cell structure of a plant. I might have to bolt it to the front of the house because it's copper. It'll be copper, and you know how people feel about copper. But I digress. That's a whole other subject. So plants have consciousness. They're full of water. That's how they thrive. We've already established that water has consciousness. You treat it with respect and love. And the body, our body, is what, like 90% water or something like that, 75% water on a good day that you're not dehydrated from a hot sun. So you have all this happy water in you. You treat it with respect. So the energy flows within you from Gaia, which is Mother Earth, to all that is, whoever you feel that you look up to, whether it's God, Goddess, there's many names of basically the same energy, and they all have different representations graphically, but in all, it's all that is. So, God, Goddess, all that is how I will say it, and most of the time experiences life through this connection to the atoms. God, Goddess, all there is, experiences life of this tree that I cannot remember the name of it. And I tried to cut down a tree like this once, and I regretted it because it was leaning just like it's leaning now. It's leaning that way. So I cut it from the other side, and it turned around and headed towards me. Like I say, it kind of twists as it grows. So then when it dries out, it also twists. And then the wood is extremely hard. You have to drill it in order to put a screw into it. And the trees have consciousness. And that's how they're connected, is through the consciousness of the atoms. So this railing again, they say, these bunch of atoms got together and say, we're going to be a railing on John's back deck. And in order to do that, we have to first become a tree. Then we have to be turned into lumber. And then we have to be cut and shaped to be a railing on the deck. Now we tend to not think too far ahead of our lives. Some people do, and some people just take it day by day, and they don't really want to look into the future. But when you're free of the ego that I have plenty of ego, and everybody has plenty of ego. When you have ego, it blocks you from thinking ahead. It blocks you from being able to make decisions that are best for you, and primarily you. Chances are you're going to make decisions that are best for other people and you're going to martyr yourself for those decisions. And those kind of processes will block you from achieving what you wish to achieve. So the cell has a pretty good idea about where it's going. It's going to be there during its conception, which means a bunch of atoms are going to get together and produce a cell, whether it's a cell for a tree, or it's a cell for a plant, or it's a cell for a human being, or it's a cell for a deer. Do you see a deer behind me? You guys are a better watcher than I am. Or a porcupine. Rabbits. We have a couple of rabbits living in our yard. Or a human being. Atoms got together and created a cell, and the cell grew, and more atoms got together, and the cells increased, and more atoms. You had a body. 9 months later, you have a child, and then that child is born in our conception of being born, and then it will eventually die. It may die at a young age, and it may die at a long age of 100 or 110 or more. And I believe that when a consciousness joins with the consciousness of the cells, the consciousness of the atoms, are as well aware of where their future is going. So, like, say if you're a meat eater, you know, an animal knows that it's being used as food, will offer themselves up as being food. They're aware of their existence. And people tend to be clouded by that. We've been taught control for decades and hundreds of years, hundreds and hundreds of years. We've been taught that we can't look at ourselves that way. We have to be in a defined religious parameter, whatever religion you follow. Many people nowadays, they step out of that religious paradox, but they still fall back to the same belief of being born and dying and life in between. I believe a consciousness is going to enter a female body for it to be a fetus and live a defined amount of time because they wish to have an experience of life. Now, some experiences may be a short term. They know that it's not going to go to full term. There's a number of reasons why a baby is not born. You know what they all are. I don't need to go through them, and I'll probably act like a fool if I try to name them. So, but you know what they are, and I believe the consciousness that has entered that fetus knows whether or not it's going to get born or it's going to have the life will be terminated before it's born. It also knows if it's going to have cancer or some kind of a childhood illness prior to entering it, because that is an experience they want to have. So yes, I do believe in reincarnation, that we continue to do our lives over and over again until we achieve the utmost self. And you often will run into people that you've known in other lifetimes that either they were always a controversy to your existence or a pleasant friend. You'll know the pleasant friend ones because you'll identify them even though you don't really know who they are, and It'll be like putting on a pair of old socks that they're just comfy. And then you'll run into the ones that are adversaries, and you know that they rub you the wrong way, and you just can't figure out why. So I believe the consciousness that exists along with all that is prior to entering into existence is aware of its future. In the human body, you know, our focus on the future is clouded with ego, and that keeps us from really looking at it from the same perspective we did before we entered that body. So you will have experiences, say, of childhood cancer or other things like that, and you know, you couldn't say that you chose this path because you just couldn't do it, unless you're mean and ruthless. But it is an experience, and you know, just them getting the love and support and even the healing that they can achieve, that they will move on. They'll either move on and continue to live, or they'll leave the planet and go on and restart into another, you know, body. I think the reincarnation, people reincarnate into people. They're not a cat in another lifetime. They're not an animal in a lifetime. You know, birds become other birds. Cows become other cows. Cats become, well, who knows what cats are? Cats seem to be on their own planet. Cats are very much aware of their existence, and you can tell just by looking at them. They look at you saying, yeah, you are my servant. So I had heard about this discussion from a person online called Richard Rohn. I think it's R-O-H-N, and he was talking about this subject, and I started thinking about it and pulling together all the information that I have learned over my 30 years of deeply delved into metaphysics and studying of life and all that is, once I came out of the closet and started embracing my uniqueness. And it all kind of pulled together, that the only way that God can experience life in all of us at the same time is that they are connected to the consciousness of the atom. So it gives you something to chew on. You'll probably get some down arrows on my YouTube channel, or hopefully I'll get some thumbs up. Hopefully I'll get some subscribes. Hopefully I'll get some likes. Hopefully you'll share it with your friends. Hopefully you might even sit down when you're having a discussion with a bunch of people and you'll bring up this topic, and to see if they throw popcorn at you or they start going, I think you got a point there. Did you come up with this all by yourself? And you'll say, yeah, I did. You'll say, I don't know this guy on YouTube got me all his ideas. I came up with it all by myself. And that's okay. I won't hold that against you. So until next time, the fairies are speaking for you and you and you and you and you. And that tree. And that backhoe, that's going to be there forever, I think. And the flowers. We've got lots of lilies, daylilies. That is the plant of the Berkshire. They grow wild everywhere. Well, grass grows everywhere, but at any rate, until next time, we close. Sending you peace, sending you happiness, sending you love.